jeans is always an evergreen. Denim is always evergreen. It goes through a bit of waves, sometimes very, very popular, sometimes go a bit, but it's always there. It'll be always there. One thing which is becoming very important is the sustainability aspect. What we are in this space, we follow the so-called the R's of sustainability. So we are talking of reuse, recycling. We also talk of rethinking a process. We have to be with the best of them. So if we have to meet all of their requirements and expectations, we have to be on top of everybody. Only then we can do it. One of the other mantras is that you have to have team motivated, people engaged, you have to take care of those things. So employee is very important, and that is something we have to invest a lot of time in. The five C is what I call of behavior: curiosity, customer first, collaboration, cost optimization, and the most important is being best in class.
Hello and welcome to Barriers to Break Beyond Business, a podcast where we dive deep into the space of B2B commerce and talk to industry experts and leaders to get your insights like never before. And I hope you've caught up on our previous episodes. On today's episode of Barriers to Break, we have a special guest. Just like how denim doesn't go out of fashion, this particular leader has made it big in the textile and the denim industry. Today, we have none other than Mr. Arvind Mathur, who is the CEO of Raymond UCO Denim. Raymond UCO Denim has a manufacturing capacity of around 44 million meters per annum and can produce around 2.75 million pieces of denim garments per annum. It's spread across a 169-acre manufacturing facility, which is surrounded by around 80,000 plants and trees. This is an interesting case study in itself. So let's dive right in and get started on barriers to break beyond business with Mr. Arvind Mathur, CEO of Raymond UCO. Hello, Mr. Arvind Mathur, and thank you so much for taking the time out to be here on our podcast, Barriers to Break. I think it's an honor to have you on this podcast, and I'm really looking forward to this brilliant conversation that we will have with you. So, if you could just tell us about your journey so far, and I think you've studied at IIT and IIM Bangalore. How did you end up in the textile industry? If you could just take us through that journey to begin with for our audience.
Great. So thank you very much for inviting me to for this podcast, and it'll be good to share. So I really enjoy sharing things about the industry and about how the journey is in this world. So as to your point, yes, I did my BTech in electronics, uh, and from IIT Varanasi, and that was way back. I passed out in 1984, and it was in electronics, and at the time telecommunications and electronics, and it was a young field in those days. And so obviously I joined it in preference to other campuses and other discipline, and it was something very hot. And when I sort of came out and I looked at the career plan at the time, it was not so much those opportunities were not there which you see today, and it was well before the Y2K era, which came a decade later. So what I did was, I of course for a short while I joined a computer firm in R&D side, and then at R&D and D and services, it was more into this. But very soon I thought that probably it's better to look at outside of India, and I got admission in one of the universities in the US. But at the same time, IIM also came up, and somewhere I had to weigh these things, India or versus the US, and I opted for IIM at the time. And that's where I moved into IIM Bangalore. After that, of course, at the campus, there were a couple of other opportunities as well, where you have to forego everything. And I opted for Madura Courts, which was at the time how it was called in India, and still the Indian subsidiary of Courts, uh, of Courts Vayala at the time. Now it's called Courts PLC. So that was at the time Courts Vayala was on a big globally. It was a textile conglomerate, which was one of the largest European conglomerates. It was on a very on an acquisition spree. A lot of good things were happening, and in the campus and otherwise also, what one was told that there will be a lot of good opportunities. globally at some point in time, and as well as in India. And so that really attracted me, and I joined Coats. And it was not joining a textile firm, but it was joining another good multinational, and that's how I entered there. But once I got into Coats, it was a very, very exciting and interesting journey. Uh, in India, I sort of, at some point in time, I got into the position of head of exports, and I turned around that very quickly with a lot of stuff which we had to do. India had a lot of challenges at the time from China, as now, but of a different nature. And we were fighting out in the Middle East market, which was under me, but we sort of got over that through various ways of re-engineering products, etc. And thereafter, uh, I rose to the head of sales and marketing for India, vice president within about 11 years. So that in those days, people used to retire as head of sales and marketing, but prior to that, but sort of it was quick. And and then there is this opportunity came my way for heading Malaysia for Courts and Singapore, and I moved there. But once I landed up there, I found that it was a very different world. I just landed up there in the midst of Asian crisis, and for those who know, it was a big meltdown of Asian currencies like high currency and the Koreans and all that, and the business was in a complete mess. And I was asked to sort of turn it around, save it, and turn around. So got into a lot of there was a manufacturing setup, had to downsize, had to optimize a few things, had to relook at what the products were. So a lot of interesting things were done, and lo and behold, the business turned around. So it was in about 4 years I was there, 4.5 years, and at the end of it, it was a profitable business again. Of course, a smaller business, but right sized. And then I was sort of so whilst I mean, in between, of course, I had opportunities elsewhere. Headhunters were calling, but I always thought this is more fun and more excitement. And further on, China became a very, very important market, potential market for Courts. It was doing a bit of business, but it wanted to grow rapidly. And the board took a view that we should have a very, very aggressive plan and grow in the market and compete with the Chinese competitors, etc. Uh, and and a private equity at the time took over, and from Courts, which was earlier London's LSE listed company. And so these private equity, the new owners wanted really an aggressive plan for China, and I was asked to lead the business in China apparel. So I got another very exciting opportunity. Being selected for China MD role was really good, and it was amazing. I mean, thereafter we did a lot of things. Like there was a greenfield, one of the largest projects for Courts in Shenzhen. They had set up both for Chinese market and also for global as a global sourcing hub. And the project was getting delayed and it had to start up, and they asked me to, being the MD also, I was asked to, first project was to get it running up and running, and which I could do. So it was good, a lot of fun. And China, we grew for a long while at double the market growth. So it was growing, but it was, I could take it further. And it was really a success story. And thereafter I was put into global jobs. I was made a head of what they call the strategic initiatives. And there were multiple, about 40, 50 different initiatives from across the world, which we brought together, distilled, discussed with the teams, and came and distilled them to some 7 or 8 major projects for the group to grow. And I was also made the head of marketing, industrial marketing for Courts. So that was certainly a lot of things happening for me. So there was never a dull moment. I always enjoyed the thing, and I stayed on in the company. So really, I would give credit to having stayed for this long, for having been part of a very, very exciting journey with Courts. And it was a very good atmosphere. They gave you a lot of chances and challenges. At some point, and then I took over digital, had president of global services, and got into the acquisition space. Took to acquire 2 companies for Courts, which was the first acquisition after almost 15, 20 years for Courts. So it was another exciting patch. And then there was a point where India was beckoning me as well. There were certain reasons, personal and otherwise. And Raymond brand in India was well known, and I wanted to be also in the front end where the brand is well known. So in the average consumer. So both being in India plus a top brand which is known in the masses, I joined this company. It was also close to the B2B piece which I was doing in Court. So those benefits, like those knowledge and skills I could bring into this business, and have been ever since. So yes, I've been part and parcel of textile business. I've been here all along, but it's been a journey because it was always very exciting, and I always stayed where as long as I was enjoying it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, thank you for sharing your journey. I think you've had an immense and amazing journey in the textile industry. But if we have to talk about the current global outlook for textile in the say like in the next 3 to 5 years, how do you think it's looking like according to you?
So if you would ask me 10 years, it's easier to say, but 3 to 5, I think it's a mixed bag. As we know right now, if you see the way the war is still on, Russian Ukraine, there's a risk of recession in the Western Hemisphere. US, Europe, all are facing a lot of challenges on the consumption side because of the interest rates, the way they've come up and gone up. Although there is now some sort of people think that there will be a plateauing of them, uh, no further major increases because inflation is also taming down, but that had its impact on the economy. So Western Hemisphere is going through a lot of challenges. Uh, Also, Indian market has been a mixed bag. It's not been that. It's of course to some extent affected by all these challenges, a bit soft. But so if you look at, we had a lot of exuberance post COVID. Suddenly there was big growth just after COVID. So a lot of inventories were also built up. So in the system, both in the domestic space as well, much more in the international space. So I think there's a bit of mixed from a manufacturer, from a supplier perspective. There would be some challenges, but if you ask me, really, ultimately, everybody wants to look good, and they will always be clothed, nice clothes. Uh, People want to dress up, so there'll be always demand for textile and for fashion and for everything. So there will be always a pull factor. These things happen, but over as we go look forward, I think there'll be always at the end of it a growth. Now whether we'll face what we're facing right now for another year or half or 3 months or 6 months, not sure. But at the end of it, the global markets have been growing in textile space at a rate of 4% annually. India has been growing much more, 8% or so. So I think those rates will catch up and will be there. Of course, textile has got clothing and apparel. There's also what you call as a household textile, that is home furnishings, and that depends on how many homes are being bought and how many flats and building constructions going on and everything else. And third thing is technical textile, which is smaller. Of course, clothing is the largest, and the technical textile, which is another growing field. You got things like medical textile going into medical uses, into even manufacturing, and into household, into protective gear, and those segments are growing at a very different rates, higher than the normal. So I think in the general there'll be growth. It'll not be a very large growth in the 3 to 5 years. It'll be a mid single digit kind of growth if you ask me for the world.
Hmm. Okay. So, speaking of Raymond UCO, so usually on this show, I only wear this T-shirt. So today, I just wore this denim shirt just to be with the theme
Oh,
of
thank you very
denim.
much. I'm honored.
Yeah, just to be with the theme of denim. So, talking
So I'm
about
wearing a denim. I'm always in my denim jeans. I'm there. So yeah.
oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, speaking of the denim industry, how do you think it has changed over the last decade? And in terms of the consumer preference, how do you think it's going to change in the future? Would you want to
Okay.
say a few words about that?
So denim industry, I mean, if you're looking at two aspects, one is the consumption and the consumer side, as you mentioned. The other is what's happening to the industry from manufacturers and suppliers who are basically providing the goods. So if I look at the consumer side of it, well, jeans is always an evergreen. Denim is always evergreen. It goes through a bit of waves. Sometimes very very popular. Sometimes go a bit, but it's always there. It'll be always there. So denim and jeans and jackets of like the one you're wearing. I think it's something which people will always wear, and all generations, cutting across whether young and old. So, in terms of changes, if you or evolution of how it's going, interestingly, these days it's back to vintage to a very large extent, to the classical this thing. So, uh, vintage with a flat fashion touch. So it's not the Western type of jeans which you wear in the old days. They are also popular, but there is a vintage look which is coming in. So, which has come in. There is also about but at the same time, we have now from rigid to a lot of stretch. In fact, on the women's side, people are looking at super stretch denim, which is absolutely stretch, going up to 70%, 80% stretch denims, uh, and so there is post COVID, it went very far down the stretch, and now there has been also again back. It's coming back to comfort wear, so it's 30-40% stretch in denim, but definitely there is denim should have stretch, which people want now. It's not the old classical rigid thing. So there is fashion there. Of course, in women, there's a lot more fashion. There's this bootleg. There are some sort of flares which have come in. People love to have some embroidery, some damage also. So those elements of fashion are popular. uh, there is apart from that, there is some movement towards bold construction, so which means you see the slabs and all that, they're looking bolder now. So that's the sort of fashion. And I was just attending in Amsterdam. We have Kingpins, which is the main denim fashion, which is the main trade fair for suppliers. And you catch up all these trends, and we share this. But one thing which is becoming very important is the sustainability aspect. So a lot of this thing, new blends, new fibers being used, natural fibers other than cotton, for example. Cotton is natural, it's good, but it does consume water a lot. People are looking at other natural fibers like linen or hemp. Even we just had something in bamboo kind of thing. So there's move towards fibers which can be more sustainable. There's also about talk about cutting down on usage of things like, we use indigo in dyeing, and that has chemicals in it, and there's this talk about cutting down chemicals usage, etc. Usage of laser for finishing garment. So dry processes, rather than using something with liquid, you use dry processes like laser, and cut down usage of chemicals and what people are talking about sustainable products and processes. And that is put, I mean, the brands of course talk about it to the consumer, talking of organic cotton based garments, for example. Those things are happening. So that's sort of for the consumer. It's about sustainability, it's about fashion, it's about vintage, it's looking uh, and with, of course, stretch and comfort. When it comes to manufacturing, that's a different thing. B2B is part of it. There's been a build-up of capacities over a period. What is happening is there's a real shift we see moving away from China to other parts for manufacturing. So at the point, China was everything. Most of manufacturing was happening there. But now there has been a gradual shift towards countries like Bangladesh and towards countries like Vietnam, even Pakistan and India. And there's been also this talk of nearshoring. So US would prefer to do it in Mexico rather than sourcing as far as out of Asia, or Turkey, which is within Europe, just at the edge. So those, and Tunisia, Morocco, for example. So in terms of manufacturing capacities, they've been shifting out of China, moving into these other countries, and as a result, there's been a bit of overcapacity in the place, in the system. The need for consumer, there's always this demand and there's always this change. So most of the manufacturing is adapting to it. So there's a lot of innovation or redevelopment or re-engineering of products which is done aligning to the fashion trends and everything. So the industry has grown, it has become much bigger. In fact, there's a capacity, there's a shift out of China. These are the trends which we are seeing.
Understood. So I think since we're on the topic of China plus one, to see like which is the other sourcing destination. So what do countries like India do to kind of be there and kind of dominate the market? What are countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh doing right, which countries like India and countries which would want to substitute for China should learn from? Is there anything that they are doing right that we can learn from?
So I would say it's not China plus one exactly, China plus N. So China, and there is Alt Asia, alternative to China. So there, I would add all these countries: India, Vietnam, Indonesia. All are trying to get that business. So it's really become Alt Asia or China plus N. And because no single country is coming out as an alternative. Ideally, with our population and all, India should have been the alternative, but it's not. And so somewhere in your question, I think there is also this answer hidden there. There's something which we are not doing as well as the Chinese did. So and I happened to be there when China grew from much smaller base to a much larger base, so I know what they did well. uh, so basically, if I look at the denim space in particular, and generally, of course, that applies to the textile space as well, but less to others. There's a big shift has happened to a country like Bangladesh, and what Bangladesh has done is they invested timely in the terms of economy of scale. They built up large setups, and the very important part is the Chinese capacities are very large. Each individual manufacturer has large capacities. In India, we are very fragmented in the garmenting side. We have small outlets, and so many buyers or brands or retailers are hesitant to bring sourcing to these because we are not able to give them the cost efficiency and everything which they're expecting. Bangladesh had, of course, one benefit, that it had free trade agreement with Europe, not with US, but with Europe. So it could actually, Europe was interested in sourcing anyway. They could immediately see a cost benefit sourcing out of Bangladesh versus China. So a lot of European buyers and retailers moved to Bangladesh as a result. Cost benefits, plus Bangladesh. There were also some kind of partnerships with Bangladesh Garden. It didn't do everything on its own. It had some of these companies had joint ventures and partnerships with which they could bring in other investments which were there, foreign investments also in the space, so they could grow and build up economies of scale, and reinvested in terms of in digitalization into processes which are best in class, thanks to their open mindedness. So they also brought in a lot of people from outside. So they didn't go for only Bangladeshis. They brought in, if they needed good washing expert, they brought them in from Turkey or from even from UK. If they needed some people from good knowledge of yarns and good knowledge of making fabric, they brought in people from China. And of course, there are a lot of Indian and Sri Lankan expats who are working there. So they basically took best of resources and invested in larger capacities. And of course, there was huge amount of government support. Being the ready-made garment is the largest foreign exchange earner for them, so the government really gives them all kinds of support. There's a direct line to the prime minister for the president of BGMA, which is the Bangladesh Garment Association. So that's in itself answers how it worked very well for some of these countries which are picking up faster than India. In India, the same very things we don't have. We should have had partnership. We could go for economies of scale. I think the government also, there are things which we can do better in terms of bringing in. Of course, there is a whole complete different story if you want to hear someday about how China did what they did. But picking up from China, this is what is happening. And same thing for Vietnam, very open to bringing in. Of course, Vietnam has also got an added advantage that the Chinese manufacturers themselves invested there, taking joint ventures and partnerships. So when Chinese manufacturers found the going was tougher, costs were going up, or their customers were looking at other countries, they themselves invested. Even the Koreans were one of the first to invest in in Vietnam. And of course, Japanese, they went into Vietnam, they've gone into Indonesia. So there is a lot of in these are very international. I mean, this is some when you are into global supply chains, you have to have an international outlook. You have to take the best people and have foreign investments or the partnerships. And of course, the government should be also supportive to a very large extent. So these things are benefiting these countries. I think India is also, to some extent, I can see the Prime Minister's recently has announced these textile parks which are coming up with the mega textile park under PM Mitra scheme. Those are some good initiatives. There is also this PLI coming up scheme which has been announced, and there are tech sector which is coming. So the government is doing, but I think we still need a lot more in terms of understanding the whole value chain to bring India into a competitive space. India is not very competitive at the moment. I think some effort is also going on to get free trade agreements, etc. So I think we are still behind, and it'll take us some time.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I think that was quite insightful, and we have a lot that we can learn from other countries who've gotten the formula right. And maybe it will take
Thank
a
you.
few more years to get it right for us, and we'll probably be there on
Yeah.
top in terms of
Yeah,
textile.
we can hasten these things if we bring in some sort of foreign talent, foreign investment, and not because they are foreign, just because the best of resources, the best of expertise, and tie-ups and investments. That'd be good for the country.
Hmm. Okay. So you also mentioned about sustainability, and you're seeing this, and you're hearing it all over every time you go to a trade show or when you're talking to a customer, and the need for brands to be sustainable. And I think Raymond UCO Denim is known for its deep focus on the sustainable manufacturing, right? So if you could just talk us through in terms of what is it that Raymond UCO is doing right, and what are the kind of initiatives that you have taken up to ensure that the manufacturing and everything end to end is sustainable. If you could just take us through a few initiatives.
So it's the company is Raymond UCO, and the UCO is our Belgian partner. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a 50-50 JV between Raymond and UCO.
Mm-hmm.
So UCO was traditionally into textiles, and Raymond, of course, was also there. So this was formed. So coming to the sustainability path, you're absolutely right. Wherever you today it is there, and there is also a lot of greenwashing. People are talking about. They talk about things, and when you go really deep down, it's not really happening. That's the unfortunate part of this. So, so in Raymond Yuko, we are very, very conscious of what we have to do. And the good thing is we have some of the best customers, best brands, and the top retailers as our customers. And all of them are very, very conscious. And in fact, each of them have their own vision and plan on how they want to take this sustainability agenda. And since we work with multiple such players, we have to be with the best of them. So if we have to meet all of their requirements and expectations, we have to be on top of everybody. Only then we can do it. So that has in a way also propelled us to be the lead. And that's also the reason why all the best customers, the top brands in the world come to work with us. So it's kind of two way. And so today, as you may know, the Paris Agreement, which is very, very important, that there are certain targets to be met by 2025, and there are other targets to be met by 2030. uh, so those targets are very well. These are basically post Paris Agreement, which was held in 2015. A lot of the agreements were taken up, and over a period they meet every now and then and announce new updates and new targets for on what should be the goals in the space of sustainability. So, like on environment side, what greenhouse emissions, what level you should have. The idea is to at the end of it, we should have zero. It should be zero. It should be neutral, emission neutral, at the end of it. So, what those kind of thing targets are there, and so we have with each of our brand partners, retailers, common agreed goals on where we should be reaching. In a way, that's also what Raymond Yuko is targeting. uh, and what we are in this space, we follow the so-called the R's of sustainability. So we are talking of reuse, recycling. We also talk of rethinking a process, how to sort of work with our partners, brand partners, on how we redesign products so that you cut down the impact of those products on environment and everything else. uh, of course, so reduce is another thing. Why use some of the stuff which contribute to things like chemicals, cut down chemicals. So have, for example, you can have processes where you can use less chemicals, or you can have product itself which doesn't use too much of dye. It can give the same look and feel but with something else, using green chemicals or cutting down some couple of things, using enzymes as alternatives. So we this in this the various R's which we use for our project, those of course are the overall overarching thing. Can we reduce something, usage of something? Can we reuse, for example, chemicals which are coming in? Can we recycle? For example, we have a very state of art ETP plant, where effluent treatment plant, where everything which goes in comes back. We don't send anything out. So we get almost 97% of whatever is used is recycled. And whatever sludge come, we also use again in generating energy. So in terms of what we take pride in, really we use almost very little of fresh water. Whatever water we are using is recycled, so fresh water intake is very limited. We have tied up with international agencies who nominate, who basically indicate what type of chemicals you can use. We have to have those certified by them. There is another thing called Hicks index in this industry. It's about environmental impact and everything else. And we in textile, we have the one of the highest scores, almost around 94%, which in textile is very few. And being in denim, which is considered more polluting of the textile, it's really remarkable where we are. So basically, what we are doing is cutting down our water usage, cutting down our greenhouse gas impact. We have reduced almost to from 2016 base. We have cut down greenhouse gas emission levels to all by 60%. So, and we are looking at cutting down by 2025 by another 35% from where we are. So it's really aggressive targets, all in accordance with the best of global targets, and in fact ahead of them, and working with our brand partners to be meeting them. In fact, we have boilers which were coal run, and we are now converting them to biofuel kind of usage. So we'll have biofuel to use instead of coal. And it's a conversion process. We have a time frame. We'll cut down. Ultimately, we'll have no usage of coal or fossil fuels in these boilers. So, like that, there are multiple goals, multiple engagements, and in line with the global best.
Wonderful. Okay. So, in terms of the campus, I think it's spread over 169 acres, if I'm not wrong, and you have a manufacturing capacity of 44 million meters per annum and around 2.75 million pieces per annum, right? So, with all of this going around and maintaining a campus of 169 acres, and I've also been told that there are around 70,000 trees that are on the campus.
Latest number is 80,000
80,000.
plus.
Okay. So how are you how is that coming together? Like you have something which is very industrial, which is like a manufacturing unit, and then you're surrounded by nature. Was that already there, or did we make it happen so that we have that going together? And I think both of us share that we are from IIM Bangalore, and we know how beautiful the campus is, and we love going back.
Oh, don't remind me of that. That's lovely. And I went way back in 85, 87, and then it was really a jungle. It was last port. And the Benerghata Park after I am. That was a thing which where we used to go once in a while over weekends, take going for a trek or something like that. But yeah, it's a green camp, one of the greenest of campuses, absolutely. So what when we took this space? So first of all, we have two campuses actually. This is the larger one is for fabric manufacturing, the one which you mentioned in Yavatmal near Nagpur, and the other one is in Bangalore where we make the garment. So garmenting is done in a different place, and it's in Bangalore. That's a smaller space. So the one in Yavatmal which we took, it was because this area was Yavatmal is surrounded by cotton fields, and cotton is a big part of denim manufacturing. But the plot we took was MIDC. This is the Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation. So really speaking, we took that plot of this huge plot but the trees and all have been planted by our people over a period of time. So really, the credit goes to Raymond UCO team to have been very focused on making it the campus a green one. And you should visit it one of these days, and we'll house you there. There's a nice guest house. You can stay there, and you can take a morning stroll. We have some facility like swimming pool, and you can play tennis. Everything. There's all this club and all there. And so basically all the trees were planted by people. And what happens is, a practice, if people go there, everybody is forced to plant a tree. And so that practice been there. Uh, so so I would say it's really what we have done over a period as a team, and not what we got.
Got it. So you've had a wonderful career in textile, and you did mention about how you started, and you enjoy being in this industry, right? So could you just take us through some of your leadership mantras, or what is the kind of leadership that you have, so that a lot of our audiences are also leaders in their own field, and there are also a lot of people who are in that managerial stage as well, who want to step up their game and go into leadership roles. So could you just help us understand a little bit more about your leadership mantras, if you have any?
So I think one of the things has been that, so as you saw, I was talking about a couple of places I turned around businesses. And so one of those things is to always take the challenges and take them head on, and always have a can do spirit. I think that is something which we have. This is more about how I have taken things on board. uh, One very important thing is that as a leader, you have a team and you have people. You'll be pleased to know that we have won award for best. So we got one of the highest scores in engagement survey, and so we have some of the most engaged employees in our organization. So for that, we got the best employer award recently, some time back. So you have to, one of the other mantras is that you have to have team motivated, people engaged. You have to take care of those things. So employee is very important, and that is something we have to invest a lot of time and effort, and at least think about it. In terms of, so one is about turning around, can do spirit, and of course, very conscious of how taking care of your employees in different ways, of course, but having them most engaged. So, just to give you an example, when I sort of joined Raymond UCO, this is my last thing, I have emphasized one thing. We didn't have a very clear vision. So, we said that where you have to set up a vision, what we are looking at. And our vision here is to be best in class in global services, in denim products and services the world over. So, no India thing or no in our segment. You have to be the global best or amongst the best. One thing which I also am very particular about is setting the right behaviors. And what I have emphasized and we communicate to the teams is about the five C's, what I call of behavior. So one of the first behaviors of curiosity, and I expect our people to be curious. Many times you kind of sit that we are the best, and you don't look outside. And the world is changing continuously all the time. And there is always people biting at your heel, no matter how good you are. And also, there's so much of innovation, everything happening in today's world, that you have to be very curious, keep learning. And that is something I want in my people. So apart from the KRAs and KPI, I believe a lot on the behavior side of it. And curiosity is very important. If something is happening, don't say, oh, those guys are cheaper, or those are, maybe there's some advantage. No, look at it and work it out. The other C, which I'm very, very particular about, is the customer first. And if everything, and it's not about just the customer facing people, it's about, if you're in logistics, if you are in the factory floor, no, you have to think of the customer. And we try to sort of spread that out. Think about the customer, and can we give and satisfy the customer. And customers, everybody's customer, not just the customer facing person. The third one has been, of course, it's very important, is about collaboration. And in our case, it's very, very important, because it's not, it's the collaboration is two ways. One is, of course, internal employees team. Whenever I see silos, etc., I don't love it. I like it at all. So we try to break those and encourage teams. If team players are not there, I come very hard on it. So I like people who are team players. There should not be too much of hierarchy. Hierarchy is important, but we should have limiting roles on that. And also, in our case, collaboration is very important with the partners, the customers. So we our products are not something like we make a type of soap and sell. No, we do everything custom made. So If you're working with a brand, say a Levi's or a Gap or an H&M, we work with them on their specifics entire. That's the nature of our business. And hence, all the time there's innovation. So we work with the partners, and the collaboration is very important. Where we have a customer where this is not happening, we encourage teams to work together with their design teams, with their manufacturing, with their sourcing teams, etc., their product teams to get engaged. The other C is about cost, and it's about cost optimization. In today in this industry, if you, especially if you're in B2B, you're under a lot of pressure, and if especially if you're in India, you have a lot of other hidden costs. So you have to be very cost efficient and cost effective. And there are many other things. It's not just slip saying, and you need to invest in technologies and keep upgrading. We are doing a lot of stuff on the technology on digitalization space. I think that we are not still there in terms of smart manufacturing or in terms of what I call as AI usage of all that. But we are setting up base and enabling our basic setup to be ready for it. So ERP is just not enough. You have to do a lot more things above it. So that's about cost optimization through investments in the right technologies and being up to date, not just cutting down, switching off lights. More has to be done. And of course, sustainability is also very much helpful there. I believe sustainability is not for adding cost, but it actually helps you cut down cost. And the last and the most important is being best in class, which is our vision as well. So the C, the fifth C is about being in class. Whenever you have to make a decision, and are we the best in this space? And if you're not, walk away, do something, or try to be. So that's those are the five. So basically, imbibing behaviors depending on the organization I worked in. In this case, I felt these were the areas which I had to emphasize on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it'll be quite insightful for a lot of people, and there'll be a lot of learnings as well. And if they could incorporate that into their business and lives, there's a lot that one can do from there. So, moving on to like you also mentioned that you wanted to be part of a brand which is well recognized, right? So every time I think of Raymond, I the thing that really comes to my mind is the tune, the ad tune, right? So could you just talk us through that? I mean, it's so how do you build a brand which is like so consistent over the years, and anybody within, like, even the younger generations, people who are the millennials, Gen Z's also in a way kind of resonate every time they hear that tune, they know that it's from Raymond. So how do you build a brand around that?
So I think I must say that a lot of our competitors are trying to do all the time build up brands, but it's not easy. It's very very challenging and it's very difficult. So building up a brand, and especially the way Raymond is today, in the way it is, it's a long journey. You have to continuously invest. So one of the most important thing is being consistent about what you're doing and the reliability part. So whenever, like, if you're a consumer, if you know Raymond, it means certain thing. Your product will be good. It'll be what it promises to be, and that is what Raymond has always ensured. So that is something which, and it reaches out to everyone. In fact, our chairman, Mr. Singhani, always says that we have products for everybody. It's not that we are only at the upper end. You can see everybody can use our products. There are for at the bottom end of the prices, the middle end of the thing, at the premium end. But whatever you buy, whosoever is buying, you always attach premiumness to Raymond. So that's been somewhere which has been done, and it's because we have heavily invested in product quality, in terms of reach through our channels. In fact, Raymond is everywhere, even as medium, in rural areas, you'll find Raymond, and also you'll find in metropolitan areas. You'll find in the top end malls, and you'll also find in a absolutely small shop in a tier city, or somewhere in fact, sometimes the rural areas. So I think it's been over a period. It is reaching out across the country. It is being consistent in terms of quality, service, product, promising. In fact, under promising and offering more. Those are things which have been there. And I would say those pretty much sums it up. So the consumer gets what they want, or more than what they want.
Got it. So I think I'll probably include that tune also on the podcast. So for people who are listening from other countries, get a hint of what we're discussing here. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's very important for brands, and it, like you mentioned, it's not easy. It's something that you build over the years, and you are consistently doing what you've promised and set out to do, right? And that is what actually builds a brand over time. So yeah, so that brings us to a very exciting section. It's the rapid fire. So I
Sure.
have actually curated this just for you, and it's going to be around denim, right? So it'll be quick and nothing's going to be
Hmm.
very difficult. It'll be like very easy
I
for you
have
to
to answer
answer.
yes and no type of things, is it?
Something around that, yeah. So can we get started on that?
Sure.
Yeah. So when it comes to denim, is it the traditional denim or is it the sustainable denim for you?
Sustainable.
Okay. Organic cotton versus recycled polyester.
Organic cotton.
Okay. Handcrafted versus automated manufacturing.
Automated manufacturing.
Okay. Classic indigo versus experimental dyes.
I think coming back to the sustainability story I was talking to, experimental dyes, which are in that direction.
Okay. Raw denim versus pre-washed denim.
Raw denim for a real denim lover.
Okay. Slim fit versus relaxed fit.
So I'm looking at myself and relaxed fit. I can never wear a slim one because I'm not
Okay. Domestic manufacturing versus global sourcing.
domestic manufacturing.
Okay. Traditional versus technological design.
Kind of both because we are using laser to make it more sustainable, but traditional, if it comes with sustainable element, then traditional, of course. But if technology is leading to more sustainable, less impact on the environment, I'll prefer the technology.
Okay. Brand heritage versus sustainability credentials. This is a hard one, I know that.
You're putting me always into a
Yeah, that's why it's a rapid
yeah,
fire.
because I don't see them as either or.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
I will see both of them.
okay. Selvage denim or stretch denim?
So I think the denim connoisseur will always go for selvage.
Okay. So I think you've spoken like a true denim connoisseur.
Yes,
And
I
what
got
would
into
you?
the denim space 6 years back, but I'm deeply into it.
Yeah,
7 years back.
yeah. So I think yeah, that kind of sums up the rapid fire. And like you mentioned, there are a lot of things which are not either or, but you'll need both of it in some way and some balance. So there's always a balance that one needs to find in business. So
Great.
just going back to your story, your journey, could you just share with us a story or an anecdote on what's the kindest thing that has happened to you in this industry?
In the denim industry.
Yeah, in your journey. So yeah.
Yeah. So no, the kindest thing has been that is the bonhomie. I would say that we have a denim association of India, and I'm in the committee there, and executive committee is also vice president. And the camaraderie. I mean, we are competing with each other, but the camaraderie you see and the affection you see of people. So I sort of I've never felt that I've come from outside the industry. People could have said, "Look here, I mean, we've been in this denim space," and most of the people, by the way, most of them are owners who've been into the denim space for a long while, and others, but they took me into it. So I think I love interactions, and it's a support and a friendship, and we exchange a lot of notes, and we are all looking at the cause for denim industry of India, how to build it up. So I think that's been a that's been very kind of the whole sort of fraternity, so to say, uh, to be part of it.
So you did mention about adopting to technology. So could you talk us through if there are any initiatives that you think like a company like Raymond UCO has taken up in the digitization and the technology space to ensure that you're more productive, you're able to manufacture better, and cater to the demands of the world.
Right. So I think we have because we have fabric business as well as garmenting. In the fabric space, we are right now. So we have, of course, our own ERPs and everything. But what we are now doing is building up machine analytics. So we have engaged people, technology partners or consultants, and building up a sort of platform where we can determine faults and everything else through various mechanisms, and uh, and this ultimately will lead us to set up a base for AI and bots to work for. So what we are doing right now is making it a smart plant of ours. The smart manufacturing is something where you have a lot of technology. But what we have done over a period is, of course, we have invested in the best of technologies uh, in terms of processes which we are controlling. Our ETP plant is one of the best known and best in class kind of thing, which is very important for sustainability and also for keeping pollution low and everything else. In the garmenting space, to improve productivity, what we have been doing is we are looking at again partnering with some of these latest technology providers in the washing. If you see, there's a washing operation which we do on the laundry side, and there's a lot of technology coming in the laundry side. There's something called eFlow where you cut down your usage of chemicals and everything else. We are trying to use technology like laser to just to a dry finishing, and you can get the same look of finished garment as you would do with using enzyme chemicals and washes, etc. So the technology is in every space, and everywhere you have to invest in basically upgrading your machines and somewhere adding on new technology which are coming in. So if I sum it up, what we are doing is we are trying to move towards what they call as industrial 4.0, where we will be making smart systems using AI and bots, and we are enabling ourselves. We have invested a lot on that side. This will also mean even our workers. Some of our workers will have, or supervisors will have, iPads or in their hand, and they could see operations and things moving up on there. And on the garmenting side, to improve efficiency, we are doing a couple of things like investing in these technologies, which I said. We have also, but I would say, along with technology, also comes in uh, a change in people. We need to have people changing to it so that they adapt it. You may put in all the best of machines and systems and algorithms, but you need people who are tuned to it. So we're training them as well. In our garmenting business, we have engaged with right now with one of the best known consultants who basically improve your supervisory skills in sync with the technology. And then also they are helping trainers. Some of our they picked handpicked some of our workers and making them trainers who will train the rest of the workers. So we are doing all this as well, so that it goes in parallel with the technology upgradation which we're doing.
Got it. Got it. So, as a think we're towards the end of it, and if there's one parting line that you would like to share to manufacturers and exporters around the world in terms of one takeaway that they can really get from this podcast, what do you think it would be?
I think one of the most important things is that you should always be looking at how you can differentiate yourself to keep away with so intense competition, and also to be innovative and to be able to partner with the right customers and everywhere else. You have to be differentiating so yourself, and to differentiate yourself you have to continuously invest in R&D and innovation, and always have people who can basically, you should have resources and good people who can help you innovate and develop. So invest in that. continuously.
Got it. So thank you for sharing that. I think just like the way you make people feel when I just put on like a denim jacket or a wear denim pant or any kind of denim related thing, I think it just brings out the joy. It brings out the real personality of a person, right? I
Oh,
think that's what
absolutely.
denim does to people.
And that is why it's never going away. People will always wear it, and different fashions may change. You may go back to rigid, and it'll come back to stretch and things like that. But it's an evergreen garment which will never go.
Yeah.
So you will always see demand for denim there. So I'm glad you're wearing that. I'm wearing on in my bottoms. I can't show them.
Okay. So this was great, Mr. Arvind. I mean, thank you so much for sharing whatever you did. And I think there were a lot of key takeaways for our audience, and I hope that they will try and implement this into their businesses and lives. And it was really an honor, and it was wonderful having you here on Barriers to Break Beyond Business.
So thank you very much for inviting me for this talk and chat, and really enjoyed some of the very interesting questions you have. And it's glad to know that you're from IIM as well. So IMB, so we are from the same institute. So there's a lot going back as well.
Yes,
Thank you very much, and I hope whatever I've said or communicated is of some help to somewhere, somebody.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.